Welcome back to I Want That Too, the podcast where Disney merch meets Disney history. Here we dive deep into the stories behind your favorite collectibles, products, and brands. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill.
And I'm Lauren Hersey, thrilled to be here as always. In today's episode, we are going to be getting to the heart of Disney's D23 Expo. And we've all heard the news and what came out of the experience and parks panels, mixed emotions there. But today we're talking specifically about the shopping experience and, some of the fantastic finds that we were able to nab at this year's event.
That's right, Lauren. And we'll also dive into the latest trends of custom character ears and share some of the more interesting book finds I stumbled upon at this year's D23.
Absolutely. But before we do that and get into all that shopping news, why don't we go ahead and thank our sponsor?
Okay, and that, of course, means we offer a huge thanks to touringplans.com for supporting our show. If you're planning a trip to Disney or Universal, it can be overwhelming with so much to see and do, but with Touring Plans, you'll get personalized planning tools and crowd insights that can help you skip those long lines and make the most of your visit. So save both time and money by checking out touringplans.com. Now, back to D23. Now, as most of you know, Lauren and I, along with quite a few members of the Jim Hill Media crew, just got back from Anaheim. And as Lauren alluded to in our opening, there's still a lot of buzz going on, about some of the announcements that were made at this year's show. But I wanted to start, Lauren, with your thoughts about the shopping experience there at the Anaheim Convention Center. Since this was your very first time at a D23 Expo, well, for starters, what did you think of the virtual queue system?
Well, if I'm being honest, it did take, it did take us a little bit of time to get used to. But from talking to folks at D23, like they considered it, some folks considered it a significant upgrade. I mean, I was talking to this girl in line and she was like thrilled with it because, I mean, she was one of the people that were getting there before 4 a.m. and previous years, like sleeping on a cement floor to just try to get into the panel that she wanted. So in that case, I'm thinking that it's probably a lot more organized, a lot less hectic. But for somebody who was brand new to it, I mean, the idea of needing to join a virtual queue at 4 a.m., folks, this is not like 7 a.m. drops at the park. This is 4 a.m. Just to be able to go to stores to spend money was a bit baffling to me. Like, I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
But,
Understood.
Yeah. But, there were still a lot of ways that you could certainly open your wallet if you wanted to. But for the big three shopping experiences at D23, you did need a virtual queue. And so they were the Walt Disney Studio store, the D23 Marketplace, and my personal fave, spoiler, was Mickey's of Glendale, which was the Imagineering store. And like I said, you definitely had to have a virtual queue either at 4 a.m. or 1 p.m. So being a D23 veteran, what did you think of all the queuing?
Well, for starters, I want to mention a term that my partner in crime over at Disney Dish, Len Testa, shared with the New York Times. In fact, I think it was on the very first day of this year's D23 Expo. And he talked about Disney complexity fatigue. The notion of, going to a Disney park, or in this case, a Disney fan event, it involved a certain amount of, as you mentioned, 4 o'clock in the morning, getting up. In fact, I remember poor Angela, who I bunked with this trip, in fact, we were all over at the Anaheim Marriott Suites in Garden Grove, which, surprisingly a convenient hotel to the convention center. But anyway, poor Angela was one of those people who got up at 4 a.m., set the alarm, and found out the hard way that we were too far away from the convention center to actually get anything. So that was frustrating. Though I do want to mention here one hack that, should they do this again, I want to be sure and share with folks, and particularly if Disney decides next time around to stage the big events over at the Honda, the studio showcase, the experiences presentation, and then the Disney Legends ceremony, because people were told you need to get on a bus 90 minutes before the event if you're going to be guaranteed to get in there. The hall, actually, the Anaheim Convention Center, the show floor, began to empty around, I want to say 4:30 or thereabouts. And for example, the Disney Studio store, which had a line the full day, I walked straight into on Friday afternoon because the line was gone. Those people were over at the Honda Center. Jim Schul mentioned the very same thing about Mickey's of Glendale. Had a line all day long until, I want to say, Sunday afternoon. It just dropped off at like 4:30, something like that. And the only one that seemed to hold its line for the entire time was the Walt Disney the D23 Marketplace up on the second
Oh,
floor.
that one was madness. And we actually weren't able to get the virtual queue for the Mickeys of Glendale, and we ended up just waiting. We probably waited 45 minutes in a standby line, but it was, in the middle of the day. So they dropped the need to have the queue for that one. But it certainly was a hack to wait until the end of the night for some of those things. Because, I think we shut it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Those days, and you were able to walk right in. But the D23 Marketplace, that line it went around the shop outside and then back inside, and then you started to be able to walk that way to get there. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the experience at each one of those shops, but that was a good hack.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. So, all right. Can you talk about some of the exclusive stuff? Well, obviously, you have a lovely shirt. I want to point that out. So.
Yeah, so when we went, the one and only thing that it was a must purchase item, was I wanted to get some dated swag, like something to commemorate the experience that we were there, because this was our first D23 event. And I thought it was going to be like the parks, that every gift shop that you go to, they're going to have something. Even we visited Disneyland on the Thursday before the expo started, and they even had a D23 day shirt, for that. So
Okay.
when we went into D23, and Angela, like Jim was talking about, she's a D23 veteran as well. And so I was asking her, I'm like, hey, where do I get a shirt? And she's like, you might be able to get one in one of the shops with a virtual queue. But we don't know. There was, I guess, from what I hear, an opportunity to maybe buy a D23 t-shirt when you were buying the tickets, but we missed that window. And so I looked and looked around everywhere, didn't find anything. And then Angela was able to get us a virtual queue for the first day. So this was Friday, for the Walt Disney Studios store. And when we went in there, I saw this Spirit jersey. There was another tan D23 shirt, but it didn't have the official D23 logo. And walking through the studio shop, there were lots of cool things, but none with just D23. So I come around a bend where the cash registers were, and there was a wall of D23 event specific merch, but it had a 70% off sign on it, which was odd to me. So I was well, this can't be the stuff. It's the first day. Why would they have all the stuff on clearance? But things there, they had like a windbreaker jacket and a lounge fly, maybe like a couple cups. And these shirts were not as a part of the 70% off clearance. So I grabbed this, and I thought, I'd keep looking. And the odd thing was that we were able to go back the next day after in the evening, and all of that 70% off merch was gone. But there was nothing that replaced it. Like the spirit jerseys were gone, the tan shirts were gone. So I'm assuming if you weren't a part of like a pre-sale group or bought it like before as you were getting your tickets, that they didn't have it. So I'm really, really glad that, I was able to get the spirit jersey. But, if any of you guys that are listening manage to get your hands on some of that dated D23 merch, like we'd love to hear about it. Please tell us when you got it, where you got it, because being there for 3 nearly full days, like I didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, and in fact, I think in a way you're being very kind to the studio store. I mean, I made a pass through there, and it's sort of like, wow, this is a lot of stuff based on architecture, and it's just sort of like, do I want something based, that looks like the Team Disney building? Do I want a water tower? And it's like, not really, no. But
A water tower for like $199.
yeah, that's okay, but again, I'm a grumpy old man. All right, but speaking of folks who were lucky enough to score specific items at this year's D23 Expo, I also want to know if you were among the lucky few who were able to get your hands on that Star Speeder 3000, that celebrated the Star Tours attraction.
Oh my gosh, Jim, those boxes were huge. Like ridiculous.
Totally. And now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this item, that this limited edition piece brought to life. Well, I mean, the actual vehicle from the Star Tours attraction from the Disney parks. I mean, an incredibly highly detailed replica of the Star Speeder, which came complete with an LCD screen inside that played the full original ride for Star Tours. Now, mind you, you had to hammer on it 6 different times to complete the film. In fact, that was what's kind of cool about it. The film stops every time there's a cut in the film, so you actually get a sense of, wow, when they made this back in the mid '80s, a complete shot inside of a model. This was killer. I mean, it had scale seats with seat belts, the doors opened, you had blasters with sound effects, and even the lighting inside the ride vehicle was in sync with the film.
Yeah, I mean, it looked really, really cool. And, the special thing about it was they only made 3,000 of them, ironically. But I do think that they sold out at the event at the $300 price tag. So I'm, on Reddit, and I saw somebody had said that it was like maybe 2 o'clock on Sunday, and they said they had like 10 left. So I'm assuming they sold out because it was one of the items that was supposed to go over to Shop Disney after the expo wrapped up. But if you go to the site, like they are sold out at that $300 price tag.
Yeah. Yeah, and crazy hot item. And by the way, my co-host on Fine Tuning, Drew Taylor, actually did manage to snag one of these while he was at the expo this past weekend.
How did he manage that?
Well, again, being a credentialed media representative does have its advantages, and I want to say it was Saturday morning. In fact, poor Drew had been up the night previous, at the studio showcase, and then I want to say he with some other media reps, because they were starving, because they didn't want to eat at the Honda Center. They went over to downtown Disney. Anyway, long story short, Drew doesn't get back to his hotel till 1 o'clock in the morning, but he has to be up at 6, not up at 6:45. He needs to be in the convention center at 6:45 because for the media reps and for the 250 TikTok stars who were invited to the event, they had an exclusive breakfast for them inside the shopping experience up on the second floor there, so that they got breakfast and the opportunity to do shop when nobody was there. And that's when Drew picked up his Star Speeder 3000 and then, was lugging around with him for the better part of the morning. And I felt so bad for him. It's like, look, let's just get out of here and go to your hotel room and drop this off, because otherwise you're going to end up with one arm like an orangutan, so.
And I mean, like, I have to say again, that box was huge. Poor Drew. But he got a really cool limited edition item that was sold out. But that was not the only cool item that was up for grabs in the D23 marketplace. Like you were saying, that was on the second floor. So some cool things that I saw whenever we ended up with our virtual queue, we were on Saturday too. There was the 75th anniversary of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And that was like the big feature when you walked in the door. So they had some pretty cool, like they had a, what are they, like a Letterman's jacket with Mr. Toad. They had some mini ears. They had some figurines, and quite a bit of that merch also ended up on shop, on the DisneyStore.com. So if you go over there, they also had some t-shirts. And so I think the majority that made it over to, the Disney Store online. The other thing that I saw that was really, really cool was the crossover line of Disney World and Disneyland. And when we were talking to Jim Schul about it, our resident Imagineer, he was saying they don't typically like cross streams like that.
There we go. There, Ghostbusters reference. Love that. Okay.
Yeah. So I was surprised to see though today over on the DisneyStore.com that they did have they had the hat that was sold out, and then they had another Letterman's type of jacket that on the back has Disneyland and Disney World. It was pretty cool. It was far more attractive than the t-shirt that they had at the D23 marketplace. It was yellow and white. Like the shirt was white. It had like a very small D23 logo on the front, and like a picture of Mickey, the classic like D that's in the Disneyland font. And then for Disney World, you're gonna have to tell me, Jim, do you know what is the little Mickey icon called for Disney World? It kind of looks like an Epcot ball with the ears.
Well, I remember, when Disney World was first announced, the notion was the world. So you threw Mickey ears on the globe, and that was the visual representation of, hey, it's Disney World. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah. So that one, the color scheme like threw me back a bit. I'm kind of wishing now that I would have grabbed one just because it was so unique that they were, crossing streams there. And if you are a fan of pin trading, I really did see something special. They released a special 2-pack of the 25th anniversary of It's the 25th anniversary of pin trading coming up.
That's correct. And in fact, worth noting here, pin trading. I mean, there'd always been people collecting pins, but the notion of pin trading actually dates back to Disney's Millennium Celebration. And in fact, in a weird bend on the story, Lauren, that it was actually a Disney executive who observed, and I want to say this would have been the 1988 Olympics. No, excuse me, 1998 Olympics, where he observed athletes from different countries. They would literally be swapping pins back and forth with one another. And it's like, oh, we should do that. So the notion of we just finished the Summer Olympics. So it's kind of a twofer that, we do have the 25th anniversary coming up, but the event that also sort of, put this notion in a Disney executive's mind. We just had a brand new Olympics.
That makes so much more sense because on the little card that had the pins, it said that it is the global symbol of friendship among Disney fans. And I was actually wondering what the hands represented on the pins. So let me give you like a description of what the pins look like. So there was a bronze pin and a silver pin. And the bronze pin had Sleeping Beauty's castle from Disneyland, and the silver pin was Cinderella's castle from Disney World. And on top of both of the castles, it to me looked like a Mickey hand and then maybe somebody else's hand, like shaking hands. And then at the bottom of each pin, it says Disney pins. So I'm assuming that this was a must have for collectors because I've not personally ever seen anything like this.
Yeah, I mean, and again, an item created again to commemorate the 25th anniversary, and again, so many of the my friends who are pin collectors are completists, so it's like, oh, they'll be chasing that one. So,
And I
all
know
right,
Angela was on the phone with some of her friends saying,
there
like,
we go.
hey, is this something that you would want? Like, this is really rare.
No, that's it exactly. That's our friend Sherry. Am I correct? You did, in fact, score a virtual queue for Mickey's of Glendale to get into the Imagineering exclusive merch, right?
Well, no, I didn't get the virtual queue, but thankfully on the second day in the afternoon, after the 1 o'clock period, they took it down from needing a virtual queue. So that's when I said that we waited probably like 45 minutes to get in there. But it was definitely worth the wait. So when we got into Mickey's of Glendale, the Imagineering shop. It just screamed like take my money. And I think of all the places that I went while we were in California, here's where I spent the most. So I mean, it's exclusive Imagineering merch. Like if you like the theme parks as much as we do, I think it makes sense. So the theme for this year was Imagineering behind the dreams, and it had like this very vibrant color scheme. It was like pink, purple, orange, like blue. And I didn't realize at the time that that was like the brand that Imagineering was using for this year's expo. But in the like Imagineering booth, it was in the middle of the show floor, and this booth was huge. I mean, like it's the size of a house, but it had like a full like wall size of this, Imagineering behind the dreams with that color scheme. So when you walk into Mickey's of Glendale, that's where you saw all of that type of branded Imagineering items. They had shirts, hats, pencils, water bottles. There was also a part of it that had like a very subtle like 3-star design. So if you didn't want to be blatant in saying like, Walt Disney Imagineering, then you could still buy something with the 3-star like design. So we got at least I think 6 there. I did not. My husband was like, would you like the one with the or I just, it was a little too bold for me. So I opted for it was a black shirt. It just said Walt Disney in the classic Disney font and then Imagineering. And I think I got one of those. I got one, like Eric got one for my boss. Like it was just something that, a lot of people would like. And in that shop during this expo, like the whole expo leaned heavily into Sorcerer Mickey. You can't see on this shirt, but on the back there's a giant Sorcerer Mickey. And so they had like comic book, type of Sorcerer Mickey and the Sorcerer's Apprentice items. They had a really big like collector plush. It looked like something that you would keep in the box, I would say. And then they had this line that wasn't explicitly Imagineering themed, but they had put their hands on it. So it was Disney characters that were like styled as water. I should have brought that shirt so I could have shown you. But I got Hunter, my son, a Sorcerer Mickey shirt, but it's out of water. It was pretty cool. So that store definitely did take all my money, and I I planned accordingly though, because I took like essentially an empty suitcase to California to be able to bring all this stuff home. And I think you've probably filled your suitcase too, but not with shirts. What were you able to get?
No, that again, Lauren is correct. I didn't overspend in the Imagineering store. I was upstairs on the second floor and in the Disney Press store, which again was located at the Anaheim Convention Center North, which is this 200,000 square foot addition that has been added to the convention over the history of the expo. It actually opened in 2017. They spent $170 million on this thing, and I'm kind of embarrassed. This was the first time I'd been up in this space, but I went there deliberately to chase down a copy of Pete Docter and Don Perry's book, Directing by Disney, the original directors of Walt's animated films, and now, wasn't that the first panel you and I went to at this year's expo? Wasn't that sort of tied to this book?
Not the first one we went to. That one was animation, but on Saturday we went to their directing Disney panel, and it was fascinating. I mean, like Pete starts off and basically says, "You know all of these movies, but do you know who directed them?" And we wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. You might know.
Well, just here's the thing. Pete Docter, and again, when you're the chief creative officer of Pixar, that you can go to various divisions of Disney, and that includes Disney Editions, who do some of the better books of the company, and you can talk about your passion project. So, previously, for example, Pete had done his Mark Davis in His Own Words book. I mean, that's that amazing 2-volume set that Pete did. It looks back at all the work that Mark Davis did for the Disney theme parks. He worked on that book with Chris Merritt. And by the way, that was published 5 years ago next month, September 2019. Was originally $150, but right now selling for $89 over on Amazon. The other book I made a point of picking up while I was up in the Disney Press booth was Dream Chasing, My 4 Decades of Success and Failure with Walt Disney Imagineering. That's Bob Weiss's memoir. And 448 pages, but well worth it. And what was interesting about going to the expo is I was able to get these books early. I mean, for example, Directing by Disney doesn't hit store shelves out in the real world till September 17th. Dream Chasing, on the other hand, hits store shelves a week after that, September 24th. Now, much like Lauren, I had to take into consideration, I got to schlep these things home. And so it was one of these things where there were 2 other books that I put off buying, largely because, again, I didn't want the plane to crash. And this was Groundbreaking Magic, A Black Woman's Journey Through the Happiest Place on Earth. And this is Disney legend Martha Blanding. working with my pal Tim O'Day to do a memoir of her time with the company. And there was also the official Disney Park Celebration cookbook done by Pam Brandon. And both of those books, by the way, won't be coming out till October 1st of this year. But Lauren, here's the weird little bend on this story. Now, again, we were just talking about the official Disney Park Celebration cookbook. Now, Adams Media, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster, big-time publisher, they're releasing the unofficial Disney Parks Holiday Cookbook, and that's coming out on September 3rd of this year. And that's 4 weeks before the official Disney Park Celebration Cookbook. And it's one of these things where it's like, which of these should I pick up?
Well, I'll have to let you know which one I get for Christmas, because I think I have all of the unofficial parks cookbooks.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah, so I have them all. And so we'll have to see which one we get gifted this year. If it will be the official or the unofficial.
Okay.
But odd timing, right?
I know. I have to admit, I'm kind of intrigued by that. Anyway, as I was flying out to LA, I actually brought along Fox Nolte's book, Boundless Realm, Deep Explorations Inside Disney's Haunted Mansion. Great book, by the way. Really learned a lot. But just today, I mean, literally, I am working on the notes for the show that we're recording. And, Amazon comes up the driveway and delivers my copy of Fox's second theme park design book, The Scoundrels, Villains, and Knaves, Disneyland, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Pop Culture. And very much looking forward to reading that. But then, the books kept coming while I was out in LA. I think we've talked about this book earlier on I Want That Too. There's Disney in Between the Lost Years, 1966 through 1986. And what's kind of interesting about this one is this is coming out from Old Mill Press. That's Dave Bossert, the longtime Disney vet, his private publishing label. But this is written by Steven Anderson, the director of Meet the Robinsons and the Winnie the Pooh movie from 2011. But it's what's amazing is it's all of these people who worked at Disney during that period, which is the most underreported period in the company's history, sharing great behind the scenes stories. So if you can, head over to Old Mill Press and grab a copy. That they only made a limited number of these. So, but it's 504 pages of goodness. And, but at the same time, you can't read Disney all the time. So I got as a palate cleanser, my buddy David Koenig, who I'm sure a lot of you know from, from the great Disney history books that he's written, Mouse Tales or Reality Land. But David is also a fan of Columbo. And he wrote this wonderful book back in September of 2021 about, it's literally called Shooting Columbo, The Lives and Deaths of TV's Rumpled Detective. But the interesting thing is he had more stories to tell. So David, in April of this year, wrote a book called Unshot Columbo. And, it's about cracking the cases that never got filmed. And it talks about the 19 episodes that were written for Columbo that for one reason or another, Peter Falk went, nah, I don't want to do that. So I've been enjoying that to sort of enter a Disney free zone. And finally, Lauren, one last book. I'm actually headed out tomorrow to get a copy of this. It's called Witches Run Amok: The Oral History of Disney's Hocus Pocus. And, this is written by Shannon Carlin. It's coming from Hyperion Avenue, 304 pages that looks back on the history of the making of this Kenny Ortega film. Actually came out on August 13th. Again, I know that's a little early for seemingly a book that should be tied to Halloween, but I also want to point out that the very first day of this year's D23 Expo, August 9th, was also the very first time Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party was presented at the Magic Kingdom this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Like, I think that is even earlier than last year. So I guess they're timing. I mean, when we were at Disneyland, not only was it fully decked out in Halloween, but people had their Halloween apparel and their ears and socks, and every shop was just filled with it. So I guess now August is the new time to promote for Halloween.
well, it's worth noting that Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights, the very first one, is going to be held on August 30th. So yeah, you're not wrong. And speaking of Halloween decorations and all that, when I was over at Pixar Place Hotel, again, I was looking for a shirt for Nancy, and they had their Halloween direct decorations out as well. So yeah, I mean, the Halloween has started at Disney, and it's worth noting that we're not all that far out from when Christmas starts at Disney.
Oh.
The first Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party this year will be held on November 8th. So, you know, don't know
That
what to
makes
tell you.
sense. And I have been there several times when they do the overnight, when they switch from Halloween to Christmas. Like, that's a good
Oh,
time if you've never done that.
that is so bizarre. You know, particularly if you go back to you leave the kingdom and come back the next morning, and it's like something is different. So, and speaking of coming back, when we come back, Lauren is going to share a new emerging trend that is making its way into the Disney theme parks in a big way. But first, this. And we're back. Okay, this segment of I Want That Too is going to be a bit different because Lauren has spotted a trend she believes is going to be the next big thing in the parks, similar to the rose gold ears phenomena we talked about in an earlier show.
Yep, you're right, Jem. So, I don't particularly like chase trends personally, but I am very intrigued by consumer behavior, and I like to spot or try to spot emerging trends before they happen. Like, that's just one of my pastimes. It makes me really happy. So the trend that Jim is referencing, it caught my eye when I was at Disney World like a month ago, and I started seeing and I have to say, they're like these headbands that are, custom character headbands. And they're very, very unique. They're character heads with Velcro, and like people will have like 2 to 4 heads per headband. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. And I've been going to the theme parks for a really, really long time. So it piqued my curiosity while I was down there. And then whenever we went out to Disneyland right before D23, they were everywhere. So I just had to know what was going on with these. So the headbands, they came from Hong Kong Disneyland. That should not surprise anybody. They debuted earlier this year, and originally they made a brief appearance during Pixar Fest at Disneyland Resort in California. And what happened was they became like a really big hit on social media, and for a period, they were not easy to find. And you know what happens when things aren't easy to find.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. So at Disneyland, you can now make your own custom character headband at the Mad Hatter on Main Street, USA, and Bing Bong's Sweet Stuff in Pixar Pier at Disney's California Adventure. What makes these headbands so fascinating is really how custom you can make them. And that's also kind of been an emerging trend that we're seeing more and more of. People like to be able to customize what they're wearing and, show, the characters off that really resonate with them. So the way that it works is it starts off with kind of like this plain headband, and then you add the little mini accessories of your favorite characters. Now, over at Disneyland, during Pixar Fest, you could get characters like Buzz Lightyear, Alien, Lotso, Hug and Bear, and those are characters to my knowledge that are still only available at Disneyland, because I did not see them at the store at Disney Springs. So if you want Toy Story, I think you're going to have to go to California for those.
Interesting. Okay, now this sounds like it could be a significant trend. Now, what did you notice at the Anaheim Convention Center? What was the response at the D23 Expo?
Well, I mean, beyond me telling you, Jim, look for these headbands. Everybody's wearing them. I need to know more. I actually saw a woman and she had 4 aliens on her headband. And I just had to ask her, like, where did you get those? And she told me that they were only at DCA, at Bing Bong's. And so the last day of D23, Eric and I headed over there, and I just I could not resist. I had to get a pair. And I was trying to decide like the combination that I wanted. I went with Mickey Mouse and Daisy Duck, like channeling all that strong female energy. And I thought that the ears were, more affordable than I had expected with like modern Disney prices.
Okay, so you don't mind me asking, how much did it set you back?
Well, it starts with that like basic plain headband, like I said, and the headband is $9.99. And then the fun part comes in where you get to choose the characters, and there are 12 different characters that you can choose from, and each one is $11.99. And like I said, they attach to the headband with Velcro. And the 12 were, well, some of them Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Chip, Dale, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Stitch, and then the Toy Story ones I had mentioned.
Mhm. So, how does that cost compare to, say, a regular set of mini ears?
Well, so the cost of the headband plus 2 characters, it comes out to be about $34.99, which is in line with a normal pair of mini ears. Now, if you want, I think it could fit 4. Like you could probably fit 6 if you were, really trying to stretch it out, and then they would be significantly more expensive than the regular mini ears. But if, headgear is not your thing, what I've seen is people getting creative with these plush characters. They're attaching them to anything, really. I mean, like a lot of the girls now are wearing those belt bags, like the Lululemon. So they're putting them on bag straps, on their Loungefly straps, strollers, like you name it. If people can attach it, like they're going to do that.
Got it. Okay, and you mentioned that these originally were sold at Hong Kong Disneyland.
Yeah, so to give you a little bit of the timeline, the custom character headbands, they did come to Hong Kong Disneyland first this year before they made it to the domestic parks. They got really popular, and the fan community was jazzed that they were going to come to Disneyland for Pixar Fest. And then they went away, and that's when they became hard to get. And now, like I said, they're at Disney Springs, and that location opened up before they brought them back recently to Disneyland. So I would not be surprised based on the interest. And I mean, I'm telling you, the last couple of days we were at Disneyland, I swear it was like 1 out of 10 people, men and women, were wearing these headbands. They're not like the mini ears that are more, geared towards women. So it would not surprise me if they end up inside the Disney World theme parks really soon. Now, I do have to say, Hong Kong's line has a far, far, far wider variety of characters to choose from. They also have colored headbands. So I'm wondering if that's what's on the horizon next for us here in the United States. But if you're a Duffy fan, they have an obscene amount of Duffy options, Duffy and Friends. And I think you'll probably have to go to Hong Kong or eBay maybe for those specific characters.
It's so interesting you bring up Duffy because remember the Duffy story starts in Walt Disney World, goes to Tokyo, becomes a phenomenon, and again, as you mentioned, the spread to the other parks out there in Asia. But for me, it's just fascinating to see how trends from one Disney park can then influence another across the globe, and with this trend, once they got started sharing it on social media, they these customers then became hard to get, which is only adds to the frenzy.
Which Disney loves, by the way. So I'll be anxious to see what comes of this viral trend, and I will be keeping an eye out on TikTok because that's normally the first indicator. If you see a lot of the influencers posting, something specific, they do have a lot of influence. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that, and let us know if you were able to get, any of the D23 merch or get your hands on some of those custom ears yourself. I think with that, I think it's time to close up shop, Mr. Hill. Is there anything interesting you want to talk about before we go with happening over on the Jim Hill Media Network?
Oh, let's see. It is everybody goes to the beach but me week. Len's off on a cruise and Jim Shul is out the door. So I am he's actually along the California shore commuting with wildlife. So I'm going to be doing a special solo show this week, though I'm casting around for a guest star on this time around for Disney Dish. But no, we've got a lot of fun end of summer shows coming. Brian Gahn and I will be talking up what Star Wars related info we learned about at this year's D23 Expo, and your husband and I are going to actually be talking about Eric Hersey about this $60 billion that Disney's going to be spending at all the Disney theme parks over the next 10 years. If you're excited about these attractions, you have Universal to thank, and we'll explain why.
Absolutely. So, Jim, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on X, Twitter, and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And Lauren, where can the nice folks find you?
Yeah, I'm Lauren Hersey on Instagram, Facebook. You can also send me an email, lauren@laurenhersey.com. And if you have ideas or things that you would like for Jim and I to cover as we move forward into a very fun time for merch, the holidays, please let us know.
Yep. And also want to remind you, we do have our video series over on Patreon, Disney Unpacked, which we do with veteran Imagineer Jim Shul, who, by the way, has his own channel over on YouTube with his Disney Journey show. So be sure and check that out. And I think for now, Lauren, that's going to do it for this week's show. So on behalf of the lovely Lauren Hersey, I want to thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.